Welcome everyone, anyone. Welcome to session number 295 of Kevin Reed's A Course in Miracles. Today, once again, we are in the supplements, supplements to A Course in Miracles, which Dr. Wapnick says came about a year after the course was published. He said Helen started to receive the way she did the whole course. And the process sounds like it took about a month and a half. But he says it was in response to a conversation they had heard, or they had had, excuse me. I'm the one that overhears conversations. All right, Dr. Wapnick and Helen Schuckman were discussing the course, which was recently published, and Helen's application of it. And as Dr. Wapnick's story goes, he said it was, he just thought that there might be something, deeper than what was happening. Said that Helen and Bill would pray for certain things, direction and guidance, and Ken makes a joke, but it was true that Helen would even ask Jesus where she should go to buy her green pantyhose. So he said there must be something deeper than that, And Ken says this pamphlet came about a little while after that conversation. So, just a bit of course history. So we're starting chapter 3, all right, in the Song of Prayer, which is prayer, forgiveness, and healing. All right, we've just finished with the notion, the idea of forgiveness. Now we'll go on to healing. All right. And just remember, if you're studying the course, if you're trying to live its tenets, and it's a process. It is a process. As Dr. Wapnick said, this is a life study, a lifelong study. So don't say, I've been studying this and that, and been studying for so long, and still I walk down the street and I call that guy an idiot. All right. There's things to, as the Chambers brothers would say, there are things to realize. Like you realize in that moment you had drifted off into the ego thought system, which meant that you were guilty of something. And you had to get rid of it. The ego thought system counsels you to project the guilt. All right. So we go through our lives like that, even though we're dedicated students of one path or another. All right. And the idea is not to berate yourself, not to heap any more guilt on yourself than you wake up with, As Dr. Wapnick would say, paraphrasing Shakespeare, he'd say, sufficient for the day is the guilt thereof. So, before I break into my stand-up routine, let's begin. Healing. This is the introduction. Prayer has both aids and witnesses, which make the steep ascent more gentle and more sure, easing the pain of fear and offering the comfort and the promises of hope. Forgiveness is witness and an aid to prayer, a giver of assurance of success in ultimate attainment of the goal, is healing. Its importance should not be too strongly emphasized, for healing is a sign or a symbol of forgiveness, a symbol of forgiveness's strength, and only an effect or shadow of a change of mind about the goal of prayer. All right, so the importance of healing should not be too strongly emphasized, for healing is a sign or symbol of forgiveness's strength, and only an effect or shadow of a change of mind about the goal of prayer. Okay? So this is the Song of Prayer. This is chapter 3 in the Song of Prayer. Remember now, true prayer, he said in the beginning, is that mind space where we're just communing with all that is. That's the ultimate prayer. It's just being in that awesome space. Right? That's true prayer. But he says, but aids and witnesses along the way. Right? Forgiveness is the main aid. Right? And healing becomes a witness. Right? And he says that it makes the ascent, the steep ascent. Right? He's telling you this is not easy. Right? It takes that dedication. Takes that sustained willingness. Right? But prayer has aids and witnesses which make the steep ascent more gentle and more sure, easing the pain of fear and offering the comfort and the promises of hope. Right? So he says that it's a steep ascent. Just ironically enough, I have one of my Terrapin Station shirts on, where it says, some rise, some fall, some climb to get to Terrapin Station, which to me was always symbolic of some, metaphysical place of oneness. So forgiveness is witness, and an aid to prayer, right, is healing. So healing is a witness to forgiveness. Right. Now we have to remember that in the Course in Miracles, Jesus keeps telling us there is no world, which means there is no body. So the body is an illusion. All right? So we're not talking about healing an illusion. We're talking about healing that part of the mind that thought it was separate from the oneness. That was the mistake, to believe that you could separate from the oneness. All right? So forgiveness is witness and an aid to prayer, a giver of assurance of success in ultimate attainment of the goal, is healing. So healing is an assurance of success. It assures us that you will ultimately attain that state of true prayer. That perfect place. Call it heaven, call it nirvana, call it whatever. It's that true communication with the oneness, with the Creator. Right. Its importance should not be too strongly emphasized. because healing is a sign or a symbol of forgiveness. It's a symbol of forgiveness' strength, and only an effect or a shadow of a change of mind about the goal of prayer. All right? So healing is the effect of forgiveness. All right? When I'm willing to see the truth about the other, I'm willing to look past the form, which is the illusion. I'm willing to look past it to the truth. Every time I do that, there is some form of healing. Right? We're talking about healing the mind. We're talking about healing that split mind. Right? And the more you practice forgiveness, you'll see it's the healing it's really ineffable, right? But you know something has changed, right? You know something has changed, right? So, it's only an effect or a shadow of a change of mind about the goal of prayer, right? So the goal of prayer is to ultimately experience communication with the oneness, awareness of the oneness. Okay, so we're going, that's the introduction. And this is the first section. This is called the cause of sickness. All right, so just keep remembering the Course's idea of sickness is, it's totally antithetical to anything the world believes, to any belief system. We're not talking about the body, all right? All right. The purpose of sickness is like, well, it's to reinforce the idea that the body is real. That's the sickness within the ego thought system. And we can use it for different reasons. So do not mistake effect for cause, nor think that sickness is apart and separate from what its cause must be. It is a sign, a shadow of an evil thought that seems to have reality and to be just, according to the usage of the world. It is external proof of inner sins and witnesses to unforgiving thoughts that injure and would hurt the Son of God. Healing the body is impossible, and this is shown by the brief nature of the cure. The body yet must die, and so its healing but delays its turning back to dust, where it was born and will return. Right? Just referencing like that statement that the Catholic priests would make on Ash Wednesday as they put the ashes and the sign of a cross on your forehead, and the priest would say, remember that dust thou art, and unto dust thou shalt return. And that's basically what Jesus says. You cure the body, but how long does that last? Eventually, the body's going to return to the dust. Okay? So in the beginning here, he says, do not mistake effect for cause. Right? Sickness is not a cause of anything. Sickness is not the cause of my uneasiness. The cause of my uneasiness is the belief I separated from the oneness. It's the belief I separated from God. Call it what you want. It's the belief I separated from all that is. I turned my back on it. I destroyed heaven. All those things. and sickness is the effect. All right? Because now I believe I'm outside the oneness. All right? And right away, Jesus said, that's sick. The mind is sick, that thinks it can be separate, that believes it can be separate. All right? So the sickness is not a cause of anything. All right? It's the belief in separation that is the cause. So don't mistake the effect, right, which is the sickness, with the cause, which is the belief in separation. Nor think that sickness is apart and separate from what its cause must be. Sickness, is a sign, a shadow of an evil thought that seems to have reality and to be just, according to the usage of the world. So that belief in separation, that's the evil thought, and the sickness is the shadow of that. All right? It's the shadow of an evil thought that seems to have reality. All right? That evil thought, I can be separated from the oneness, I can do this on my own. That seems to have reality in this experience here. According to the world, he says. So sickness becomes an external proof of inner sins and witnesses to unfortunate, unforgiving thoughts that injure and would hurt the Son of God. All right? Sickness is external proof of my inner thoughts that would injure me. That thought of separation injures me as a son of God. All right. And he says, healing the body is impossible. And this is shown by the brief nature of the cure. So, even if I was seriously ill as a little child and I was cured, hallelujah. Somewhere down the road, you're gonna pass away. So that's really a brief nature. The cure was really brief. It was the blink of an eye. The body yet must die, and so it's healing, but delays its returning back to dust. All right. Paragraph 2. The body's cause is unforgiveness of the Son of God. It has not left its source, and in its pain and aging and the mark of death upon it, this is clearly shown. Fearful and frail it seems to be to those who think their life is tied to its command and linked to its unstable, tiny breath. Death stares at them at every moment. Death stares at them as every moment goes irrevocably past their grasping hands, which cannot hold them back. And they feel fear as bodies change and sicken, for they sense the heavy scent of death upon their hearts. Okay. It's like Stephen King wrote the course. Yeah. But I can relate, believe me, as I get older, you start to think about things, But he's telling us, look, the body's cause is unforgiveness of the Son of God. And it's all happening in my mind. I thought I destroyed the oneness. Right? I destroyed the Garden of Eden. I destroyed the peace of the Garden of Eden. I pissed off God. Right? Now I feel guilt. That's the unforgiveness. Instead of realizing, oh, that was a silly idea. That really can't be done. Right? You can't leave the mind that thought of you. Instead of returning to that thought, as one son of God, we condemned ourselves. We're guilty. We're guilty. And we had to get out of the mind, because now we think God is going to come get us. And as it says in the story of Adam and Eve, he comes stomping through the garden, screaming and yelling. I told you not to eat that. Right? You're going to be in pain the rest of your life, he says. Yikes. And that's what we believe in the mind. So we got to get out of the mind. And that ego thought system counsels us again. It says, oh, okay, I'll tell you what you do. Your mind is very powerful, you know. We'll just project out of the mind and we will make up stuff. We'll make stuff up, as they say. And we project into this world, into the world of form. And here we are in a form. Right? So the body, the form's cause is unforgiveness of the Son of God. And who's not forgiving the Son of God? The Son of God. He thinks he's guilty. Meanwhile, his creator, his father, so to speak, loves him like the moment he was born. Right? He's got no idea what he's talking about. When he's talking about he's guilty or he destroyed heaven. He's got no idea. It's a tiny mad idea, at which the Son of God remembered not to laugh, as the sentence goes. All right. And so we deem ourselves guilty, and we project and we hide, and we look for other people to take the blame. It wasn't me. It was my brother. All right. So the body's cause is unforgiveness. It has not left its source. All right. We haven't left our source, which is the mind of God, which is the mind of oneness. All right. And its pain, the body's pain, and its aging and the mark of death upon it is clearly shown. All right, so this form, all right, it's all those things. It's painful, it's aging, and the mark of death is upon it, sooner or later. Fearful and frail it seems to be to those who think their life is tied to its command and linked to its unstable tiny breath. So it's very fearful, it's anxiety producing, right? For those of us who focus on the body, right? who think that life is attached to the body. Right? Those who think that their life is tied to its command and linked to its unstable and tiny breath. Very poetic. But that's what he's talking about. People that think the body is the be-all and end-all of things. Right? And there's billions of people that really have no idea that there's something beyond the form, there's something beyond the senses and what they report. All right? reminds me of Jimmy Carter when he was talking about his visit to North Korea. He said he felt sorry. He said it was sad that so many people in North Korea had nothing to fall back on. And he was talking about the world of spirit. And Mr. Carter had his ways of studying spirit and acting through his spiritual path. He was an extremely generous and kind person through his type of Christianity. That was what he fell back on, right? Knowing that this was not all there is. There was something else to connect with. But those who think their life is tied to the body's command, all right, it's fearful, very fearful. Because death stares at them at every moment, right? Death stares at them as every moment goes irrevocably past their grasping hands, which cannot hold them back. You can't stop the sand in the hourglass, right? You can't stop it. And they feel the fear as bodies change and sicken. And I phased in and out of these thoughts. Right? Because I'm getting older and stuff happens. Because they sense the heavy scent of death upon their hearts. All right? And that's for people who are totally attached to the body with no idea of anything else. Nothing metaphysical, nothing past the physical. So he says in paragraph 3, the body can be healed as an effect of true forgiveness. Right? Only that can give remembrance of immortality, which is the gift of holiness and love. Forgiveness must be given by a mind which understands that it must overlook all shadows on the holy face of Christ, among which sickness would be seen as one. Nothing but that. The sign of judgment made by brother upon brother, the Son of God upon himself. For he has damned his body as his prison, and forgot that it is he who gave this role to it. All right. So when he says that the body can be healed as an effect of true forgiveness, all right, it's really not talking about symptoms. All right, it's talking about the guilt that resides in the mind. All right. And who knows, the body may perk up. A symptom may be reversed, but that's not what he's talking about. Right? Remember, he keeps referring to the body's an illusion. All right, for 660-something pages of the text. All right. Only a true forgiveness, and that true forgiveness is when we are truly willing to drop all what we think we know and see the truth about the other. That's when healing happens. It is only that can give remembrance of immortality. Right? And as you practice forgiveness, and you'll have those moments where, oh wow, I didn't think it would be that way, but you know that maybe a level of fear has decreased, or a level of animosity has decreased. All right, although it may rise again, still it doesn't last as long, and we know the remedy. It's that true forgiveness. And he says, even in those little moments, all right, even in those little moments is it's the remembrance of immortality. It's the remembrance of the oneness. It's the remembrance of who you are comes rising up in the background until it's totally clear to you who you are and what you are and where you are. With a little, if you don't know Edie Brickell, you could check her out. Right? What I am is what I am. Right? Are you what you are, or what? What you are will start to arise in your awareness with the practice of forgiveness. And that awareness of who you are is the healing. That's the healing. Right? That's the remembrance of immortality, which is the gift of holiness and love. Right? Forgiveness must be given by a mind which understands that it must overlook all shadows on the holy face of Christ, among which sickness should be seen as one. Nothing but that. The sign of judgment made by brother upon brother, the Son of God upon himself. For he has damned his body as his prison, and forgot that it is he who gave this role to it. I started reading my little notes from who knows how many years ago. Right? Because when it says, for he has damned his body, it's talking about that decision-making part of the mind. Right? For that brief moment. Right? The decision-maker. Has damned his body as a prison, right? And he forgot that he's the one that gave the role. He's the one that made it up, right? It's that decision-making part of the mind which chose to believe in separation. At that point, everything rolled out, right? Including the illusion of time. But he says, forgiveness is the answer, right? It's just the answer. It's the tool of prayer. It will help us get to that place, right, where immortality is remembered. And it will. You'll see if you practice. And don't berate yourself when you have a bad day. Okay? Some days you hit the target and some days you don't. But don't berate yourself, because that just reinforces the ego. The ego says, yeah, see, I told you, you're guilty. Something wrong with you. So that forgiveness can give remembrance of immortality, which is the gift of holiness and love. All right? And forgiveness must be given by a mind which understands that it must overlook all the shadows on the face of Christ. So we have to drop everything we think we know, all the resentments, all the history, everything. All the psychological words to say, well, he was threatening your self-image, and it's good as you go along, but sooner or later you got to drop it all right? Because these are shadows on the face of Christ. These are shadows on the idea of innocence. All right? So forgiveness must be given by a mind that understands that it must be, everything must be overlooked. And remember, in the Course, overlook means to look past it. All right? So look past all those grievances, all those grudges. And it's practice. So someday the grudge arises again. It's okay. So if you don't want to feel angry, if you'd rather feel peaceful, ask for help. So, and just make that little report. I'm willing to see the truth. I'm willing. And the truth entails the innocence of the other. Right? And as Dr. Wapner could say, not in time, because in time, people do despicable things, right? But looking past that to the truth of oneness and innocence, and I'm going to keep saying it, it's practice. But you'll notice as you practice, the effects of the grudge won't last as long, okay? Until one day it rises up and, it's a burp in the wind, as they say. It's nothing, and it becomes nothing. All right? So because your mind understands that it has to overlook all these shadows, right? All these grievances on the face of Christ, all these grievances against innocence, all these reasons why they're not innocent, but that forgiveness is given by a mind that understands. No, you got to drop it. Be willing to see the truth. They must overlook all shadows on the holy face of Christ, among which sickness should be seen as one. So sickness is seen as a shadow on that face of innocence, on the face of Christ. All right? Nothing but that. All right? Sickness is the sign of judgment made by brother upon brother, and the Son of God upon himself. Right? If we judged ourselves, we continually judge ourselves as guilty. For he has damned his body as his prison, and forgot that it was he who gave this role to it. So we make up this world of form, and we forget we did that. It's being done to me. It's being done to me. So even sickness is being done to me. He says, but no, you chose the role. You chose to think that you were a body. That's why, and that's what happens to bodies. And then he says in the next paragraph, what he has done now must God's Son undo. All right? But not alone. Big statement. For he has thrown away the prison's key, his holy sinlessness, and the remembrance of his Father's love. Yet help is given him in the voice his Father placed in him. The power to heal is now his Father's gift, for through his voice he can still reach his Son, reminding him the body may become his chosen home, but it will never be his home in truth. Right? Just beautiful poetry, wonderfully consistent thought. All right? So he talks about, well, you actually chose, to believe you're separated, and so you got a body. All right? So what he has done must God's Son undo. So you have to undo that belief in separation. You have to undo the ego's thought system, which is the belief in separation. It starts there. And then there's the guilt. Then there's the fear of God. Then there's the projection out of the mind, so you think. So you have to undo this. And you say, oh my God, how do I do that? All right. So he says, what he has done, now must God's Son undo, but not alone. You don't have to do it by yourself. You carried with you into the dream the memory of who you are, the memory of your Father's voice, so to speak. All right. The Holy Spirit, we call it in the Course in Miracles. All right. Jesus is the manifestation of the Holy Spirit, constantly reminding people who they are, where they came from, their relationship to their Creator. That's what Jesus was doing here. So you have to undo, but not alone. For we, the Son of God, for he has thrown away the prison's key. The prison's key is your innocence, your holy sinlessness. And the remembrance of your Father's love. How could you be in prison if you remember your Father's love? How could you be in prison if you remember your holy sinlessness, your innocence? All right. So we've thrown away the key. Yet help is given to him in the voice his Father placed in him. All right. Remember, this is metaphor. And so into this dream, we took with us the voice. All right. The voice our Father placed in our mind. The power to heal is now his Father's gift. For through his voice, he could still reach his Son. All right. So through the Holy Spirit, we could still reach the Father. Reminding him that the body may become his chosen home, right? So that voice for God, that memory of who we are, tells us, all right, so you might have chose to believe you live here, right? But it will never be your true home. All right? It'll never be your true home. Distinctions, therefore, must be made between true healing and its faulty counterpart. The world of opposites is healing's place. For what in heaven could there be to heal. As prayer within the world can ask amiss, and seeming charity forgive to kill, so healing can be false as well, a witness to the power of the world or to the everlasting love of God. All right? So he goes, look, distinctions have to be made between true healing and its faulty counterpart. So in other words, we're not talking about the body. There's untold, what people call miraculous cures. All right? And that's all well and good. Jesus says, don't poo-poo the magic, the medicine. He says, use the medicine until you're totally aware of who you are and your relationship with your Father. Don't worry about using a doctor. Don't worry about using the Tylenol. All right? Don't worry about remedies. All right? Until you can honestly say that my home is in heaven with my Father. I and the Father are one, as Jesus said. And so you could truly say that and experience that. It's one thing to say it. I and the Father are one. It's another thing to experience that. Okay. So distinctions, therefore, must be made between true healing and its faulty counterpart. The world of opposites is healing's place. All right? So here within the ego thought system is where healing is needed. He said the same thing about forgiveness. So we don't need forgiveness in heaven. You don't need forgiveness within the oneness. You don't need forgiveness in your true home. There's nothing to forgive. In your true home, there's nothing to heal. All right, the world of opposites. All right, this world of form. That's where healing is. That's healing's place. For what in heaven could there be to heal? As prayer within the world can ask amiss, all right, as he went over, as asking for things, that's asking amiss. All right, and forgiveness can look like extreme charity, although we're condemning this person by holding on to the guilt. Right? So as prayer within the world can ask amiss, and seeming charity forgive to kill, so healing can be false as well as true. A witness to the power of the world or to the everlasting love of God. Okay? And while we're on the journey, once again, let me say, do not forego medical advice. Do not forego any kind of procedures. All right? Make your body feel better. Okay? Do not poo-poo it. All right? As a practitioner of a different system in the 80s once told me, don't try to be in the Indianapolis 500 before you got your license. All right? Take it easy. All right? This is a process. All right? So healing can be false as well as true. A witness to the power of the world. Okay? Miracle cures. Witness to the power of the world. Or healing can be a witness to the everlasting love of God, which is true forgiveness. All right. And like I say, don't deny your body what it needs. Right? And you could do that and still stay on the path, because it is a process. Right? And prayer, forgiveness and healing are their helps. They help us climb the mountain. All right? Some rise, some fall. Some climb to get to Terrapin. All right? And, denying your body, Jesus says, is an unworthy form of denial. All right? So if you practice forgiveness, there'll come those points, and there'll come a major point in time when you will realize, oh, okay, that remembrance of immortality will dawn on you, and peace will arise in your mind. Okay. All righty then. We'll leave it here. So the cause of sickness is the belief in separation. That's the cause. Okay, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it. Bye now.